My name is Daniel Carter, and this story begins with my daughter. Her name is Lily. She was 6 years old when she first told us about the thing under her bed. At the time, my wife Emily and I thought it was just another childhood fear. You know the kind: monsters in the closet, shadows on the wall, the usual stuff kids imagine when the lights go out. But Lily was never that kind of child. She wasn't dramatic. She didn't cry over imaginary things, which is why the first night she told us about it still bothers me when I think back. It was late evening. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and Emily was reading Lily a bedtime story. I was downstairs finishing some paperwork for work. The house was quiet, calm, normal. Then I heard Lily's voice upstairs, not crying, not screaming, just calling out softly, "Mom?" Emily answered right away, "Yes, sweetheart?" There was a pause. Then Lily said something strange. "Something is breathing under my bed." Emily laughed gently. "The heater is on, honey. It's probably just the vents." "No," Lily said, very calmly, too calmly for a child. "It breathes when I stop breathing." Emily told me later that the room suddenly felt colder when Lily said that, but she brushed it off. She checked under the bed. Nothing there, just dust, a couple of toys, and Lily's slippers. So Emily kissed her goodnight, turned off the lamp, closed the door. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. The next morning, our dog Buster disappeared. Buster was a small brown terrier. He followed Lily everywhere, slept beside her bed most nights, waited outside the bathroom door, even sat beside her while she ate breakfast. They were inseparable. So when Lily came downstairs that morning and asked, "Where's Buster?" Emily and I looked at each other, because Buster wasn't in the house. At first, we assumed he had slipped outside. Maybe the back door hadn't closed properly. Maybe he chased a squirrel. Something normal, something explainable. I searched the yard, the garage, the street, even the small woods behind our neighborhood. But Buster was nowhere. When I came back inside, Lily was sitting quietly at the kitchen table. She wasn't crying, she wasn't upset, she was just staring at the floor. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "we'll find him." She looked up at me and said something that made Emily stop pouring coffee. "He went under the bed last night." Emily forced a smile. "What do you mean, honey?" Lily shrugged. "He followed the breathing." Emily and I exchanged a look. The kind parents give each other when a kid says something odd. The silent, "Let's not encourage this" look. "Dogs hide sometimes," I said. "Maybe he found a little space somewhere." Lily didn't argue. She just nodded slowly. But before she got up from the table, she added one more thing, quietly, almost like she didn't want to say it. "He didn't come back out. Is less than hash-on. 5 hash is greater than." For the next few days, the house returned to normal, or at least, we told ourselves it had. Then the scratching started. At first it was very faint. Late at night, a slow scraping sound, like fingernails on wood. I heard it around midnight the first time. I was sitting on the couch watching TV when the sound came from upstairs. Very soft, very slow. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. I muted the TV, listened carefully. Nothing, just silence. I told myself it was the house settling. Old wood does that. Temperature changes, pipes expanding, normal things. But the sound came again. Scratch, scratch. This time from Lily's room. I went upstairs. Slowly. The hallway was dark. The only light came from Lily's night lamp under the door. I opened it quietly. Lily was asleep, curled under her blanket, her stuffed rabbit beside her. The room was silent, perfectly silent, until I stepped closer to the bed. Then I heard it, right beneath the mattress. Scratch. I froze. The sound stopped immediately, like something had heard me. I crouched down, slowly, and looked under the bed. Nothing, just darkness, toys, and dust. I stood up again, shook my head, turned toward the door. That's when Lily spoke, without opening her eyes. I told you it was there. I felt a strange chill run through me. What did you say, sweetheart? Her eyes slowly opened, and she looked directly at the floor beside the bed. It hides when grown-ups look. I laughed nervously. Kids say strange things when they're half asleep. But Lily kept staring at the same spot, the floor beside her bed. Then she whispered something so quietly I almost didn't hear it. But it watches you. That night, I barely slept. And 2 days later, our cat Milo disappeared. This time, Lily didn't ask where he went. She already knew. Because that morning, when Emily went to make Lily's bed, she found something carved into the wooden frame. Deep scratches, long, uneven. Not random, not accidental. They formed letters, slowly cut into the wood, like something had taken its time writing them. 3 words. Still hungry. Emily called my name from upstairs, and the way her voice sounded, I knew something in our house had just changed. Something that was no longer pretending to hide. And that was only the beginning. Emily stood in Lily's doorway, holding the bed frame like it might collapse. I had never seen her look like that before. Not scared exactly, but wrong, like her mind was trying to explain something that refused to be explained. "Daniel," she said quietly, "you need to come see this." I walked upstairs slowly. Part of me already knew what she meant. The scratching from the other night, the sound beneath the mattress, Lily's calm little voice saying it hides when grown-ups look. I stepped into the room. Emily pointed to the wooden bed frame. The scratches were deep, deeper than any animal claw could make. 3 words, uneven, carved slowly, like someone dragging a nail across the wood over and over. Still hungry. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. Finally, Emily whispered, "This isn't funny." "I didn't do it," I said immediately. "I know." We both turned slowly toward Lily. She was sitting on the floor with her coloring book, drawing something with a red crayon, completely calm. "Sweetheart," Emily said gently, "did you make these marks?" Lily shook her head. "No." "Did you see who did?" She looked at us, then slowly pointed at the bed. "It did." Emily forced a laugh. "You mean the monster again?" Lily didn't laugh. She just nodded. "It was hungry." Something about the way she said that made the room feel colder. That afternoon we told ourselves it had to be an animal, maybe a raccoon in the crawl space, maybe something living inside the walls, something logical, something normal. So I called a pest control company. A man named Rick Dalton came that evening. Big guy, gray beard, the kind of man who has seen every problem a house can have. He listened to our explanation, looked at the scratches, then crouched beside Lily's bed. "Well," he said, If something's living under here, we'll find it. He lowered himself onto one knee, shined his flashlight beneath the bed. Silence. Then he leaned closer. The beam of the flashlight moved slowly across the floorboards, across the toys, across the shadows. Rick frowned. That's strange. What? Emily asked. Rick didn't answer immediately. He kept staring under the bed. Then he said something I didn't expect. It's deeper than it should be. What do you mean? I asked. Rick pulled the flashlight out slowly. Your floor should be right here. He tapped the wood. But the beam keeps going. Emily and I looked at each other. Rick shrugged, probably just a shadow angle or something. Then he leaned down again, this time pushing his arm further under the bed, almost up to his shoulder. Yeah, that's weird. His voice sounded different now, less confident. Rick? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he suddenly pulled his arm back, fast. What happened? Emily asked. Rick stood up, looking confused. I thought something brushed my hand. Lily looked up from her drawing. It says hello sometimes. Rick chuckled nervously. Kids and their imagination is less than Hashone. 5 hash is greater than, but I noticed he didn't kneel down again. Instead, he checked the rest of the house, the attic, the vents, the basement. After about 20 minutes, he came back downstairs. Well, he said, I don't see any animals. So what made the scratches? Emily asked. Rick hesitated, then shrugged. Honestly, I don't know. He packed his tools, headed toward the front door. But before leaving, he turned back toward me. Listen, he said quietly, you ever hear talking at night? My stomach tightened. Talking? I asked. Rick nodded, like whispering. I didn't answer. Rick scratched his beard. Probably nothing, he muttered. Then he left. That night, the whispering started. At first I thought it was Emily. Maybe she was talking in her sleep. But when I rolled over, she was asleep beside me. The voice was coming from the hallway. Soft, barely audible, like someone speaking from behind a wall. I sat up slowly, listening. The whisper continued, slow, patient. I couldn't understand the words, but I knew one thing. It wasn't a child's voice. And it definitely wasn't human. Then Lily's bedroom door creaked open. Tiny footsteps walked into the hallway. Lily? I whispered. She didn't answer. I got out of bed, walked slowly toward the door. When I opened it, Lily was standing in the hallway, facing the darkness at the end of the corridor. Sweetheart, I said quietly. She didn't turn around. She just said something softly. It wants to talk to you. The whispering stopped. And for the first time since all of this began, something in the darkness of our house answered. The voice that answered from the darkness wasn't loud. It was barely more than a breath, a slow, dry whisper that seemed to slide through the hallway rather than travel through the air. Daniel. My heart skipped. I hadn't told anyone my name, not Rick, not anyone outside the house. Yet the voice said it clearly, like it had known me for years. Lily tilted her head slightly, still staring into the dark end of the hallway. "It says hello," she whispered. "Lily," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady, "come back to your room." She didn't move. It likes when we listen. The darkness at the end of the hallway seemed deeper than usual, not just dim, but thick, like the light from the night lamp couldn't quite reach it. Then the whisper came again. "Hungry?" I stepped forward immediately and took Lily's hand. Her fingers were cold. "Bed," I said firmly. This time she followed me without arguing. But as we stepped into her room, she looked back into the hallway and smiled. That smile stayed with me long after she fell asleep. The next morning, things got worse. Emily found the kitchen chairs moved, all 4 of them pulled slowly toward the hallway. Not randomly. They formed a crooked line, pointing toward the staircase. "What is going on in this house?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. Then Lily came downstairs, still in her pajamas. She looked at the chairs, then nodded. "It likes to make paths." Emily stared at her. "Paths to where?" Lily pointed upstairs. "To the bed." Emily grabbed my arm later that afternoon, pulled me into the kitchen. "This isn't normal," she whispered. "You think I don't know that?" I said. "No, Daniel, I mean it." She lowered her voice. "I heard it last night." My stomach tightened. "The whisper?" Emily nodded slowly. "But that's not the worst part." She leaned closer. It was saying Lily's name. That evening, I decided to check under the bed again. I waited until Lily was asleep, the house quiet, Emily downstairs watching TV. Then I grabbed a flashlight and crouched beside the bed. For a moment I hesitated, because something inside me didn't want to look. But I forced myself to do it. I leaned down and shined the light under the bed. The beam slid across the floorboards, across the toys, across the shadows. Then it kept going, further than it should. The light didn't stop at the wall. It kept traveling into darkness. My throat tightened. That space under the bed should have ended after 3 feet, maybe 4. But the beam kept moving. 5 feet, 6, 7. Then it disappeared, like the darkness swallowed it. I slowly pulled the flashlight back, my hands shaking. That's when I heard something move down there. Very slowly. A dragging sound, like something large shifting its weight. Then the whisper came again, much closer this time. "Found me." I stood up so fast I hit my head on the mattress. The whisper stopped immediately. And from the bed above me, Lily spoke softly. "You shouldn't shine lights at it." I turned. Her eyes were open, wide. "How long have you been awake?" I asked. She shrugged. "It wakes me up sometimes." "What does?" She slowly pointed toward the floor. "It says the house is getting bigger." That sentence echoed in my head the rest of the night. The house is getting bigger. The next day, our neighbor came over. His name was Mr. Alvarez. He lived across the street, kind older man, always checking on everyone in the neighborhood. He knocked around sunset. "Daniel," he said, "I wanted to ask you something strange." "What is it?" He pointed toward our house. "You've been doing construction?" "No." He frowned. "Then why are there lights on in the windows at night?" Emily stepped onto the porch. "What do you mean?" Mr. Alvarez pointed upstairs. "Your daughter's room." Emily shook her head. "We turn the lights off every night." Mr. Alvarez looked confused. "Well, last night there were lights moving in there." My stomach tightened. "Moving how?" He hesitated. "Like someone walking around." Emily and I looked at each other. Because Lily had slept in our room that night. Mr. Alvarez scratched his head. "And another thing." "What?" I asked. He pointed toward Lily's window again. "I thought I saw someone standing there." My heart pounded. "Someone?" Mr. Alvarez nodded slowly. "Tall. Too tall for that room." A long silence followed. Then Lily's voice came from inside the house. "Daddy?" I turned. She was standing in the hallway behind the door, holding her stuffed rabbit. But she wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, at Mr. Alvarez. And she said something quietly, something that made the old man's smile fade immediately. "It knows you saw it." That night, Mr. Alvarez didn't go home right away. And before the night was over, someone in the house would hear something moving under the floorboards. Something large. Something that was no longer staying under the bed. Mr. Alvarez stayed for coffee that evening. Emily insisted. I think she just didn't want him leaving while it was getting dark. The three of us sat at the kitchen table. Lily was in the living room watching cartoons. At least, that's what we told ourselves. But every once in a while, I caught her looking toward the hallway, toward the staircase. Mr. Alvarez wrapped both hands around the coffee mug. "They've been talking about strange things in the neighborhood," he said. "What kind of things?" Emily asked. "Pets disappearing." Emily and I exchanged a glance. "2 houses down," he continued, "a family lost their rabbit last week." He lowered his voice, and someone said they heard scratching under the floor. A quiet chill ran down my spine. "Probably raccoons," I said quickly. Mr. Alvarez nodded slowly, but I could tell he didn't believe that explanation. Then Lily walked into the kitchen, holding her stuffed rabbit. She stopped beside the table, looked directly at Mr. Alvarez. "You shouldn't stay after dark." Emily forced a small laugh. "Lily." But Mr. Alvarez raised a hand gently. "It's all right." He smiled at her. "Why shouldn't I stay?" Lily shrugged. "It's starting to walk." The room went very quiet. Emily stood up immediately. "Bedtime?" she said quickly. Lily didn't argue. She just turned and walked upstairs. Mr. Alvarez watched the staircase long after she disappeared. "That girl has a strong imagination," he said softly. But his voice didn't sound convinced. Around midnight, the power went out. No warning, just darkness. The refrigerator stopped humming, the TV went black, and the entire house became silent. Emily lit a candle. Mr. Alvarez checked his phone. "No outage reported," he said. That's when we heard it. A slow creaking sound from upstairs. The staircase. One step, then another. Heavy, slow, like something learning how to use legs. Emily grabbed my arm. "Is Lily awake?" "I don't think so." The steps continued, slowly descending. Mr. Alvarez stood up. "I'll check," he said. Before I could stop him, he walked toward the staircase. The candlelight barely reached the first few steps. Beyond that, the darkness was thick. "Hello?" he called gently. The creaking stopped. Total silence. Mr. Alvarez stepped onto the first stair. Then the second. The wood groaned under his weight. He lifted his phone, using its small flashlight. The beam slid up the staircase, across the railing, across the wall. Then he froze. "What is that?" he whispered. "What?" Emily asked. Mr. Alvarez didn't answer. He slowly leaned closer to the stairs. Then he reached out, touched something on the wall, and pulled his hand back quickly. "It's wet." My heart started pounding. I walked closer, raised the candle. That's when I saw it. New scratches, deep ones, running along the wall beside the staircase. They twisted downward, like something had dragged its claws while climbing down. And at the bottom of the wall, the scratches formed letters. Emily read them first, her voice barely a whisper. "Not just hungry." A cold wind seemed to move through the hallway, though every window was closed. Then the whisper came again. From the darkness above the stairs. "Growing." Emily gasped. Mr. Alvarez turned his flashlight upward again. The beam climbed the stairs slowly, step by step, until it reached the top and stopped because something was standing there. Not fully visible, just a shape, tall, too tall for the ceiling. Its head bent sideways slightly, like it was trying to fit inside the hallway. The flashlight trembled in Mr. Alvarez's hand. "What is that?" The shape didn't move. But the whisper came again, closer now. "Still hungry." Then the flashlight went out. "Is less than has hone. 5 hash is greater than," Emily screamed. Something rushed down the staircase, fast, too fast. Wood cracked, air moved violently, and Mr. Alvarez's phone hit the floor, sliding across the hallway. When the lights suddenly flickered back on, The staircase was empty. Emily was shaking beside me. But Mr. Alvarez was no longer there. Only his phone remained, its flashlight still on, pointing toward the stairs. And from somewhere upstairs, we heard Lily giggling softly. For a few seconds after the lights came back, none of us moved. Mr. Alvarez's phone lay on the floor. The flashlight beam pointed toward the staircase, steady, unmoving. But the man himself was gone. Emily's grip on my arm tightened. "Daniel," she whispered. I knew what she was going to ask, but neither of us wanted to say it out loud. Because the truth was already sitting in the room with us, listening. From upstairs, Lily's soft giggle drifted down the hallway again. "Mommy?" Emily flinched. "I'm here, sweetheart," she called, her voice trembling. A pause followed, then Lily spoke again. "It's bigger now." Emily slowly turned toward me. "Daniel, we need to go upstairs." Every part of my mind told me not to, but we couldn't leave Lily alone up there. I picked up Mr. Alvarez's phone. The flashlight still worked. The beam felt small, weak, but it was the only light we had. Emily grabbed the candle, and together we walked toward the staircase. The scratches on the wall looked deeper now, almost like grooves carved by knives. And there were more of them, much more. They stretched along the wall, across the railing, even across the ceiling. As if something with very long claws had climbed everywhere, testing the space. Halfway up the stairs, Emily stopped suddenly. "Daniel." "What?" She pointed at the steps. Dark marks, long streaks, dragging downward. Like something heavy had been pulled. I swallowed hard. At the top of the stairs, the hallway felt wrong. The ceiling seemed lower somehow, the shadows deeper. And Lily's bedroom door was open. Just slightly. The light inside flickered softly. "Lily?" Emily called gently. No answer. We stepped closer. The door creaked open wider. Lily was sitting on the floor beside her bed, playing with her stuffed rabbit. She looked perfectly calm, almost happy. "Sweetheart," Emily said quickly. She rushed forward and hugged her. "Are you okay?" Lily nodded. It was loud. Emily looked around the room. "Did you see Mr. Alvarez?" Lily tilted her head. "He's downstairs." Emily and I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked. Lily pointed toward the bed. Downstairs. A slow, heavy silence filled the room. Emily slowly turned toward the bed. I followed her gaze. The blanket was hanging slightly over the side. The darkness underneath looked deeper than ever. The flashlight beam slid beneath the bed again. And once more, the light kept going. Further, further, further. The floor never appeared. Just endless darkness. Then the beam caught something. Movement far below. Something pale. Something that moved like a hand. Emily gasped. I pulled the light back instantly. The whisper came again, from under the bed. More. Lily giggled softly. It's learning. Emily grabbed her shoulders. What is learning? Lily looked at the floor again. How to come out. My chest felt tight. I slowly lifted the blanket, just enough to see the space beneath the bed. The darkness moved. Not like shadows, like something shifting inside it. Then a long scratching sound echoed from below, and new marks appeared on the wood, right in front of us, slowly carving themselves into the frame. Letter by letter. Emily covered her mouth, because the message forming there was longer this time. Much longer. It read, "The house is small." Another scratch followed beneath it. "Bring more." The whisper came again, closer than ever before. "Hungry." And from somewhere deep beneath the bed, something began climbing. For a long moment, none of us moved. Mr. Alvarez's phone lay on the floor, its flashlight shining toward the staircase. The beam trembled slightly in my hand as I picked it up. Emily grabbed my arm. "Daniel," she whispered. I knew what she was thinking. We had both seen it, that shape at the top of the stairs, too tall, bent sideways like it didn't belong in a human house. But the worst part wasn't what we saw, it was what we didn't see anymore. Mr. Alvarez. His coat was still hanging on the chair, his coffee still warm on the table. But he was gone. From upstairs, Lily giggled again, soft, almost playful. Emily's fingers tightened around my sleeve. Why is she laughing? I didn't answer, because I already knew where that sound was coming from. Her room. We climbed the stairs slowly. Each step groaned under our weight, and the higher we climbed, the colder the air became. By the time we reached the hallway, our breath was visible. Emily whispered, "That's not normal." No, it wasn't. Lily's bedroom door was slightly open. A faint yellow glow came from inside. The night lamp. But something else moved in that light, shadows shifting along the walls. Emily pushed the door open slowly. Lily was sitting on the floor, right beside the bed. Her legs crossed, her stuffed rabbit in her lap. And she was whispering, not to us, to the space under the bed. "They saw you," she murmured. Emily rushed forward. "Lily!" Lily turned her head slowly. Her expression was calm, too calm. "It says you're loud," she said. Emily pulled her away from the bed immediately, holding her tightly. "Where is Mr. Alvarez?" I asked. Lily shrugged. It invited him. A heavy silence filled the room. "Invited him where?" I asked quietly. Lily pointed beneath the bed. "Home." My stomach twisted. I walked slowly toward the bed. Emily grabbed my arm. "Don't." But I had to look. I knelt down and aimed the flashlight beneath the mattress again. The beam slid across the wooden floor, across Lily's toys. Then it kept going. Further, further, until the floor disappeared entirely. Below the bed was darkness, endless darkness. Not a crawl space, not a shadow. A drop. My light reached down 10 feet, 20, 30. Still nothing. Then something moved, far below. A slow shifting shape. And for a split second, the flashlight reflected off something. Eyes. Many of them. Blinking slowly in the dark. I jerked back instantly, my heart pounding violently. Emily stared at me. What did you see? I couldn't answer. Because at that moment, something began climbing upward. Slowly, very slowly. From the darkness beneath the bed, a long sound followed, like claws sliding against stone. Lily watched the bed quietly. "It's stretching," she said. Emily grabbed her tighter. "Daniel, we need to leave." I agreed. We moved toward the door. But as we stepped into the hallway, we noticed something new. The walls. They were covered in scratches, dozens of them. Some fresh, some older, and everywhere, words. Carved deeply into the wood. "Still hungry. Let me out." Getting bigger. And one message, larger than the rest, cut straight across the hallway wall. Emily read it first, her voice shaking. "House too small." From Lily's room behind us, the bed creaked loudly. Something heavy shifted. Then we heard it clearly. A long arm sliding onto the floor. And Lily whispered something that still echoes in my head. "It's coming out now." The hallway lights flickered violently. And behind us, something large began pulling itself free from under the bed. The sound behind us was slow, heavy, wet. Like something enormous dragging itself across the wooden floor. Emily didn't turn around, neither did I. Some instincts are stronger than curiosity, and every instinct in my body told me the same thing. "Do not look back." "Downstairs," Emily whispered. We began moving quickly along the hallway, Emily holding Lily tightly in her arms. But Lily wasn't scared. She leaned over Emily's shoulder, looking back toward her bedroom, and she smiled. "It's big now," she said softly. Behind us, something long scraped across the hallway wall. The sound of claws digging into wood. Then came the breathing. Deep, slow, too large for any animal. We reached the staircase. I turned slightly, just enough to see the end of the hallway. And for a moment, I wish I hadn't. Something was emerging from Lily's room, not quickly, not aggressively. Slowly, carefully, as if it had waited a very long time to stretch. The first thing I saw was an arm. Long, thin, covered in dark, uneven skin that looked almost like bark. The arm bent at strange angles, too many joints. Its fingers dragged along the wall, each one ending in long claws that left deep grooves in the wood. Then the rest of the body followed. Tall, so tall it had to bend under the ceiling. Its back scraped against the hallway light, making the bulb flicker. I couldn't see its face clearly, only the outline of something wide and the faint reflection of many small eyes looking straight at us. Emily gasped when she saw it. "Daniel." "Don't stop," I said quickly. We rushed down the stairs. Behind us, the creature began descending as well. But it didn't walk. It climbed, its long limbs stretching across the walls, clinging to the ceiling, moving silently, like a spider learning how to use a house. We reached the bottom floor. The front door was only a few feet away. I grabbed the handle, pulled. It didn't move. "Daniel," Emily cried. It stuck. Behind us, the creature stopped halfway down the stairs. Its body unfolded slowly, stretching into the living room. The air became colder, colder than any winter night. And then it spoke. Not a whisper this time. A voice, deep, dry, like wind moving through hollow wood. Small. Emily clutched Lily tighter. "What does it want?" she cried. Lily answered before I could. "It wants more room." The creature tilted its head slowly, studying us. Then its claws touched the floor. The wood bent slightly beneath its weight. "Growing," the voice said again. And suddenly the house creaked loudly. Walls shifting, wood stretching. The hallway behind the creature seemed longer than before. Much longer. As if the house itself was expanding, making space for it. The creature lowered itself slowly until its many eyes were level with Lily. "Mine." Emily stepped back. "No." But Lily gently pushed away from her arms. She walked forward. Calm, curious. Like a child greeting a friend. "Lily," I shouted. But she stopped just a few feet from the creature and looked up. "It says I heard it first," she whispered. The creature leaned closer, its body filling the entire room now. Opened. I finally forced the door open behind me. Cold night air rushed into the house. "Lily," I yelled. But she didn't move. She just turned toward us one last time and said something that made my heart stop. "It says the house will get much bigger soon." Then the creature wrapped one long arm around her gently and began pulling her back toward the staircase, toward the hallway, toward the bed. Emily screamed. I ran forward, but the floor beneath the stairs suddenly cracked open. A dark space appeared below, deep, endless, just like beneath the bed. The creature climbed back toward Lily's room, taking her with it. And the last thing we heard before the bedroom door slowly closed was Lily laughing softly. "It's not under the bed anymore," she said. "Now it's under the whole house. For a moment is less than #0. 5 hashes greater than none of us moved. The bedroom door upstairs had closed, slowly, quietly, but the sound of it echoed through the entire house. Emily collapsed to her knees. "Lily," she whispered. Her voice was hollow, like the word had nowhere left to go. I stared at the staircase. The darkness above it looked thicker now, heavier, almost alive. Then the house creaked again. Not the normal kind of creak, not wood settling. This was deeper, like something enormous shifting inside the walls. I grabbed Emily's hand. "We're leaving." She didn't argue. We stumbled out the front door and into the cold night air. For a few seconds, we just stood there, breathing, trying to understand what had just happened. Behind us, the house groaned. I turned slowly. The lights inside Lily's room flickered. On, off, on again. And then, something moved behind the curtains. Something tall, too tall for that room. Emily grabbed my arm. "Daniel, it's still inside." I didn't answer, because the house itself was changing. The roof shifted slightly. The walls stretched. Just a little, but enough to notice. Like the building was slowly taking a breath. Then a soft sound drifted down from the second floor. Lily's voice. "Daddy?" Emily gasped. "She's alive." She tried to run back inside, but I stopped her. Something about that voice was wrong. Too calm, too distant. "Daddy, it's bigger now." The curtains in Lily's room moved again. And this time, I saw it clearly. The creature's silhouette filled the entire room. Its long limbs pressed against the walls, its head almost touching the ceiling. And beside it, a much smaller shape, standing perfectly still. Lily. But she wasn't looking out the window. She was looking up at the thing beside her, like a child watching a parent. "It says the house needed to grow," she continued softly, "so it could stay." The floor beneath the house rumbled. A low vibration rolled through the ground. Emily started crying. What does it want from her? I already knew the answer, because I remembered the words scratched into the wood. "You heard me first." The window in Lily's room slowly opened. Cold air poured out, and Lily leaned slightly forward. "It says I helped it wake up." Her voice sounded happy, proud, and now it can grow everywhere. Behind her, the creature's long arm wrapped gently around her shoulders. Not tight, not violent, almost protective. Then its head lowered beside hers, and dozens of tiny reflections appeared in the dark. Eyes, watching us. "Don't worry, Daddy," Lily said softly. "It says there are lots of houses." The lights inside the room flickered one last time, and the silhouette behind her shifted, growing taller, wider. The ceiling bulged slightly upward. Emily covered her mouth. "Daniel, The house. I nodded slowly, because it wasn't just Lily's room anymore. The entire house was stretching, making more space for something that was no longer under the bed or even inside the room. Before the window closed, Lily said one final thing. It says other children can hear it too. They just have to listen at night. The curtain slid shut, and the lights went out completely. Emily and I never went back inside. By morning, the house looked normal again. Too normal. The police searched every room, the basement, the attic. But Lily was gone. There were no footprints, no broken windows, no sign of anything unusual. Except one thing. Inside her bedroom, beneath the bed, the floorboards were gone. Not broken, not removed. Just gone. And beneath them, there was only darkness. Deep, silent, endless. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about what Lily said about other children, because every once in a while, when the house is quiet and the lights are off, I swear I can hear something under the floor, breathing, waiting, and sometimes, very faintly, I hear Lily's voice. It's bigger now, and it's almost ready. So tonight, before you go to sleep, you might want to check under your bed. Just once. Because if you hear breathing down there, very quietly, listening to you, then it might already know your name. And if that happens, you should probably pretend you didn't hear it. Because the worst thing you can do is listen back. After all, that's exactly how Lily heard it first. They told me that talking about it would help. The doctors here say memories lose their power when you speak them out loud. That's why they keep asking me the same question. Daniel, what really happened on the island? They write everything down. They nod. They pretend to listen. But I can see it in their eyes. They don't believe a single word. So this isn't for them. This is for anyone planning to go there. Because I recently heard something on the television in the common room. An expedition. A team of researchers preparing to visit an uncharted island in the Pacific. The same island where our ship went down. And if they actually land there, they won't come back. My name is Samuel Carter. I was a cargo navigator. 10 months ago, our ship encountered a violent storm in the middle of the ocean. The waves were enormous. The radar failed. The hull took damage. I don't remember the exact moment the ship broke apart. Only the sound of metal screaming and the freezing water closing over my head. When I woke up, I was lying on sand. 5 other people had made it to shore. 6 of us in total. And for a moment, we actually felt lucky. The island looked beautiful. Tall trees, fresh water streams, white beaches. We thought survival would be simple. We were very wrong. The others were Maria Alvarez, a marine biologist, calm, smart, the kind of person who could make a plan even in chaos. Lucas Bennett, former Coast Guard, big guy, the type you instantly feel safer standing next to. Ethan Cole, the youngest, only 22, still joked about everything, even the shipwreck. Dr. Victor Lang, a historian traveling with cargo research materials, quiet, observant, always thinking. And Nina Park, a photographer documenting maritime routes. She was the one who first noticed the cave. That first day, a storm rolled in quickly. Heavy rain, strong wind. So we ran toward the cave entrance to take shelter. At first, it just looked like any other rock formation. But once we stepped inside, we saw the walls, covered in carvings. Hundreds of them. Crude drawings scratched deep into the stone. Figures of people. And something else. Something tall, thin, with a wide mouth. The same figure appeared in drawing after drawing, always standing over the smaller human shapes. Dr. Lang studied them carefully. "These are warnings," he said quietly. Lucas laughed. "Warnings from who?" Lang didn't answer right away. Instead, he pointed at another carving. This one showed people hiding inside caves, while the tall creature waited outside. "Something hunted them," Lang whispered. Ethan rolled his eyes. His less than has hone. 5 hash is greater than, or maybe ancient artists just liked scary stories. We all hoped he was right. That night, we built a small fire near the beach. And that's when we heard the first sound. Something moving in the forest. Slow steps, heavy. Lucas grabbed a burning branch and walked toward the trees. "Probably wild animals," he said. But when he returned, his face had changed. "There are tracks," he said. "Big ones." "Like what?" Maria asked. Lucas hesitated. "Like nothing I've ever seen." The next night, Ethan disappeared. One moment he was sitting beside the fire, laughing, telling a stupid joke. The next moment, something moved in the darkness. A blur. A scream cut through the night. Then silence. We searched the forest for hours. All we found was the ground torn apart, and long marks in the dirt, like something had dragged him away. Nina cried all night. Lucas didn't sleep. He kept watch with a spear. But on the 4th night, Lucas was taken too. We only saw it for a second. A shape taller than any man, moving between the trees. Too fast, too silent. Lucas charged at it, trying to protect us. I still remember the sound his spear made hitting something hard. And then the forest swallowed him. Maria stopped speaking after that. She just stared at the jungle like she knew none of us were leaving. On the 7th night, we heard it breathing outside the cave. Slow, heavy, scratching along the rock. Nina covered her mouth to stop herself from crying. Dr. Lang whispered something I'll never forget. It hunts in darkness, but it waits for fear. That was the last thing he said. Because a long arm reached into the cave entrance. Too long, too thin. Lang was closest. It pulled him into the dark before any of us could react. Maria lasted 2 more days. On the 10th day, a rescue helicopter finally arrived. The moment Maria heard it, she ran toward the beach. I tried to follow, but the forest moved again. That same tall shape stepped between the trees. Maria froze. The helicopter crew saw her. They lowered the rope, but the thing moved first. By the time I reached the beach, she was gone. Only the rope was swinging in the wind. The rescue team found me hiding under the rocks. Alone. 10 days after the shipwreck. They said trauma can create vivid hallucinations. They said isolation does strange things to the mind. That's why I'm here now. In this hospital. But 3 nights ago, I saw something on the news. A research expedition preparing to visit that island. They called it untouched by human presence. That's why I'm telling this story now. Because those cave carvings were right. The people who lived there long ago weren't leaving warnings for each other. They were leaving them for us. And if those researchers land on that beach, they'll hear the same sound we heard. Slow steps moving through the trees. Something tall. Something patient. Something that only hunts after sunset. And by the time they understand the warnings carved into that cave, it will already be watching them from the darkness. If you're reading this, then it means I finally decided to write down what really happened. I know I'm not supposed to. Every document we signed before the mission was clear. No interviews, no unofficial reports, no personal records. But the truth is, I don't think they're planning to let me speak much longer anyway. My name is Commander Elias Ward. I was part of the Ares 7 mission, the 4th human expedition to Mars. Officially, the mission ended successfully. That's what the press conference said. That's what the headlines reported. 3 months of research, new geological samples, safe return to Earth. But there's something missing from that story. My crew. 6 astronauts launched with me. Only 1 came back. Me. The official explanation says there was a systems failure, a catastrophic malfunction inside the habitat module. That explanation is convenient. But it's not true. The real story begins on Sol 18 of the mission. That's when we found the tunnel. It happened during a routine geological survey. We were mapping a cluster of basalt formations about 4 kilometers from the landing site. Nothing unusual at first, just rock, dust, endless red desert. Then Dr. Han noticed something strange on the ground. A crack. But not a natural one. It was too smooth, too symmetrical, almost like an entrance. We widened it carefully using our excavation tools. Underneath the rock layer, there was a hollow space. A tunnel. Perfectly round, about 3 meters wide. And it went straight down into the planet. At first we thought it might be a lava tube. Mars has plenty of those. But when we lowered the camera drone, the feed showed something impossible. The walls weren't stone. They were smooth, almost organic, like hardened flesh. None of us said that word out loud, but we were all thinking it. Mission Control told us to investigate carefully. So the next day, 3 of us descended into the tunnel. Dr. Hen, Lieutenant Mercer, and me. The deeper we went, the warmer it became. That alone didn't make sense. Mars is freezing. But down there, our suit sensors showed temperatures rising steadily. Then we started hearing something. A sound echoing through the tunnel walls. Slow, rhythmic, like breathing. Mercer joked that maybe Mars had lungs. None of us laughed. About 50 meters down, the tunnel opened into a massive cavern. Our helmet lights barely reached the ceiling. But what we saw on the ground was worse. Bones. Thousands of them. Not human, not animal. Something else. Thin, long, with too many joints. Then Mercer's light moved across the floor, and we saw the holes. Hundreds of tunnels branching out in every direction. And something inside them was moving. At first, it was just shadows. Then one of them came closer. Its head slowly emerged from the tunnel. It looked wrong. Long body, thin limbs, and a mouth that opened sideways, filled with rows of small moving teeth. Dr. Han whispered over the comms, "Back up." But the creature wasn't alone. More heads appeared in the tunnels, watching us, studying us. Then one of them moved, faster than anything I've ever seen. Mercer didn't even have time to react. It wrapped around him. His scream filled the comms. And then the signal cut out. Dr. Han and I ran. We climbed the rope as fast as we could. Behind us, the tunnel filled with movement. Dozens of those things crawling upward. The rest of the crew sealed the entrance when we reached the surface. But it was already too late, because the ground began to move. Not shake. Move. Like something enormous was shifting beneath the sand. That night, they came out. Not just from the tunnel. From everywhere. The ground around the base cracked open, and the creatures emerged. Hundreds of them. The security cameras recorded everything. The way they surrounded the habitat. The way they climbed the walls, the way they forced their way inside. I won't describe what happened next, but the sounds are something I still hear every night. I was the only one who reached the escape module, the only one who managed to launch. When I returned to Earth, they took my recordings, every file, every log. They told me what the official story would be, and they made it very clear that I was never to mention the tunnels or the creatures. But here's the problem. Before we left Mars, we scanned the entire region, and the data showed something terrifying. Those tunnels, they weren't local. They stretched across hundreds of kilometers, a network beneath the entire planet, which means those things have been there for a very long time, and humanity just landed right on top of them. The next Mars mission launches in 8 months. They're sending 12 astronauts this time, and no one has told them what's waiting under the surface. If this note reaches any journalist, please publish it. Because if something happens to me, I want people to know the truth. Mars isn't empty. It never was. And whatever lives beneath that red desert already knows we're coming back. Most people don't remember much from when they were 7 years old. Small things fade first. Voices, rooms, faces. But there are some places that stay with you forever, even if everyone else pretends they never existed. My name is Michael, and when I was a child, I lived in a place called St. Alder's Home for Children. Most people in town just called it the orphanage. It stood on the edge of the forest, a tall gray building with narrow windows and a rusted iron fence. If you looked at it from far away, it almost seemed peaceful. But inside, things were very different. There were about 30 of us living there, children between 6 and 14. We slept in long dormitories filled with metal beds. At night, the building made strange sounds, old pipes knocking, floors creaking, wind whispering through the walls. At least, that's what the caretakers told us. But after a while, we realized something. Some sounds didn't belong to the building. They belonged to something else. It started with the basement. We weren't allowed to go there, ever. The door was always locked, and the head caretaker, Mrs. Dalton, warned us many times. If any of you go near that door, you'll regret it. Of course, that only made us more curious. Especially my friend Daniel. Daniel was older than me, braver too. One night, he whispered something to a few of us before bed. I found the key. The dormitory went silent. 3 of us followed him that night. Me, Daniel, and a girl named Lucy. The hallway was dark, only the dim emergency lights glowing red near the floor. When we reached the basement door, Daniel pulled the key from his pocket. The metal lock clicked open. The moment the door creaked, a cold smell rushed out. Wet, earthy, like soil after rain. Daniel pointed his flashlight down the stairs. The basement looked older than the rest of the building. Stone walls, low ceiling, pipes running across the top. But there was something else too. Scratches. Long marks carved into the walls. Hundreds of them. As if something had been dragged along the stone, over and over again. Lucy whispered quietly, "Maybe we shouldn't be here." Daniel ignored her. We walked deeper into the basement. And that's when we saw the door. A second door at the far end of the corridor. Much older than the first one. Heavy wood, iron bolts, and strange symbols carved into it. None of us recognized them, but something about them made my stomach tighten. Daniel reached for the handle. Before he could touch it, something tapped on the other side. 3 slow taps. Tap, tap, tap. We froze. Lucy grabbed my arm. "Did you hear that?" Daniel whispered back. "Probably pipes." But then the tapping came again. This time, louder. Tap, tap, tap. And something else followed. A sound like breathing. Slow, heavy. From behind the door, Lucy started crying quietly. "Let's go." Daniel hesitated. Then the door moved. Just slightly, as if something inside had leaned against it. The wood bent outward, and through a thin crack, something dark appeared. A long finger. Thin, pale, too long to belong to a person. It slowly slid through the crack and touched the floor. Lucy screamed. We ran, all the way back up the stairs. Daniel slammed the basement door shut and locked it again. The next morning, Daniel was gone. His bed was empty. Mrs. Dalton told everyone he had been transferred. But something about her voice sounded wrong. Lucy disappeared 2 nights later. Again, the caretaker said she had been moved. But we all knew. Something was happening in that basement. More children disappeared over the next weeks. Always at night. Always silently. Then one night, I heard something under my bed. Scratching. Slow, patient. Like nails dragging across wood. I leaned down and looked into the darkness. And I saw something moving. A thin arm slowly sliding out from the shadows beneath the beds. Its fingers tapped the floor. 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. I screamed. The lights turned on. Caretakers rushed into the room. But when they looked under the beds, there was nothing there. The orphanage closed 2 months later. The official story said it was due to structural problems. But I knew the truth. I told people what I saw. About the basement, about the door, about the thing behind it. No one believed me. They said I was a scared child with an overactive imagination. That was 30 years ago. The building still stands today, abandoned, empty. But last month, I visited the town again. I stood outside the old fence, and for a moment, I thought I heard something inside. A faint sound echoing from deep within the building. 3 slow taps. Tap, tap, tap. Exactly the same sound I heard as a child. So if you ever pass an old orphanage at night and you hear something knocking from below the floor, don't try to find the source. Because some doors were never meant to be opened. And some things have been waiting a very long time for someone to listen.